Up next, we have another amazing speaker in artificial intelligence. This speaker will talk about why AI training isn't enough, avoiding the taught but not transformed trap. An accomplished senior learning and development leader, AI consultant, trainer, author, and entrepreneur with 2 decades in corporate learning. As founder of Blaque, she develops human-centered, AI-powered learning ecosystems that shift how people think and perform. She's author of Taught But Not Transformed and is known for her mentorship-driven approach that builds confidence and creates lasting change. Let's welcome LJ Johnson. So join me in the comments as we welcome our next speaker.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to AI Insights. Probably wondering who I am. So my name is LJ Johnson. I am an AI learning and development strategist, and I am co-founder and CEO of Blaque LLC. I run Blaque with my husband, TJ Johnson. He and I lead a family-owned company that is grounded in what we call conscious consulting, because we strive to meet our clients where they are, no matter where in their learning journey they may be coming from. What we specialize is in adoption, AI enablement, and AI learning strategies. So as you'll see, we do upskilling, workflow integration, and we focus on adoption that sticks using structures to avoid TNT. We have a diagnosis called TNT. We do an ACT structure and a flow structure. This is what helps us in our workshops with business owners, entrepreneurs, coaches, trainers, and learners. We think about creatives, orgs. They're all the same when they're trying to roll out AI or a new tool that they're trying to adopt. We focus on these adaptive structures, and the clients we serve touch a lot of different areas, since AI adoption and learning can be a large, broad structure for everybody. Let's get started, shall we? So before we get started, I'll put my disclaimer out there. The views and tools shared in this presentation are my own and not endorsed by AI Insights Summit. I'm an independent third-party presenter and a consultant in the AI Certified Consulting Program. So my presentation is based on my experience and my expertise. My title is Why AI Training Isn't Enough. So we have some business and organization leaders that have been on our calls with us, but my initial question really doesn't matter if you're a leader, because at some point we have all been learners, right? So think about the past trainings that you've recently had. How many of those trainings actually changed how you think or decide what you do when you're under pressure? Have you reverted back to your old habits when faced with a short decision or a pressure decision? If you're like most organizations or individuals, you kind of pause and thought about the training. Did you use it? Did you use the skills? And then you think about the training wasn't bad, but maybe it didn't stick. That gap has a name. In the next 15 minutes, you'll learn why AI adoption or any skills-based adoption is going to fail. And the context prompting coaching structure that I show you will help you make it stick. Ready to take my journey? Let's go. So let's align first. I'd like you to reflect on an AI training recently that you've had. And it can actually be any skills training, but think about that. And if you've taken a training already this year, focus on a couple of those trainings. For my next question, and you don't have to answer out loud, but just think about it. How many of those trainings that you've just recently taken helped you think and decide when you were under pressure? What happened then? If you're like most people, you thought that the training wasn't bad, but maybe there were certain things that happened that didn't keep you. So that name is called Taught But Not Transformed. That's a gap. So the tool launched, and then that organization or individual, we adopt those cutting edge platforms with high expectations. We're excited about the training. The training gets completed, and then the teams and sessions, we learn some features, we receive some new links, we write a new book. There's early excitement. And then a month, 2 months later, I suspect 90 days or more, there's no lasting change. Maybe a few things stick. Or maybe you go back to the same way that you're thinking, but what your expectations were was, I might need another training. Let's put it to another way. Everybody's AI story in the beginning sounds the same. Look, the class wasn't resistant and they may have even been trained, but the excitement doesn't change. It's the adoption that does. When we're talking about the status quo when it comes to learning, we roll out tools and we run training. And as that excitement spikes, it doesn't mean the learning did. That excitement can last 1 to 2 weeks. And then after that, things start to slow down. It's like when you're committed to using a digital notebook. I myself, I'm guilty of this. And I use a digital notebook all the time in moments that I have. But then that moment that I need to take something quick or a really good nugget comes out, I revert to pen and paper. Maybe it's something immediately I have to do. That means the skill has not been developed because the old habit comes up. I don't immediately go there. So even though I know what's a better way, I may not use a better way. That means I haven't been transformed to use digital capture rather than writing in my notebook. It's the same thing. It's called the sugar rush learning. You might rush very quickly for the first few weeks, and then after a little while later, you revert back to your old way of thinking or your old way of training or your old way of learning. You weren't transformed. It doesn't matter what context that it's in. And my apologies, I don't read verbatim from my slides, so follow the journey along with me. Think about in corporate environments at the top there of the slide. You have bureaucratic processes that slow adoption down, compliance concerns when it comes to businesses. I know I'm in corporate America myself. They hesitate, and then the priorities start to come in, and that dilutes the focus of the actual training. So a lot of red tape, a lot of blue tape, a lot of tape, right? Entrepreneurial environments are not much different. Resource constraints, limited experimentation can cause it, rapid pivots. Those are the same different things that'll cause a failure output or cause us to not reinforce our training. Those are all triggers for TNT. Taking more training doesn't solve it. Let me give you a different visual so you can understand what's happening. Remember an iceberg visual? I've adapted that to what I'm trying to convey to you. Training is event-based, builds capability, focuses on what tools to use, those login skills, the prompts, the tools. That's all part of your training. Transformation is mindset-based. It's decision-making, metacognition, workflow, and integration. Training builds on what people already know. Transformation changes how they decide and when to apply that training in real moments. So let me tell you a story. Jennifer sat in the back row of the fourth time of taking my class. It was an advanced leadership strategies class workshop. She was feeling disconnected at this point, I believe. And when I noticed that this was her third or fourth time taking my class, although she was facing performance challenges, she couldn't quite pinpoint it. She couldn't even articulate to me why she had taken the training. She was really frustrated. And because of that she was not able to show what she had learned in those trainings through her data, it caused her to come back to the class. And she was forced to take that class over and over. At the third time, I went and had a conversation with her. I had to understand why she was taking the class, and I looked to assess her learning gap. And then I discovered something else after talking to her and asking her, why are you in here again? And she was like, I really feel like I should be. I was like, but you know the material. Have you been that person? Take a class over and over, maybe once, maybe 3 times. And then when it's time to use the material or use the skill, it still doesn't work. So you go back and take the class again. Why are we getting stuck? Why are you not transformed? That's TNT. So let's talk about where we got stuck. So as you look at this slide, I'm going to challenge you a little bit on how I break this down. We read from the top down, but growth happens from the bottom up. Keep this in mind as you look at the slide and follow along. Let's look at the bottom of the slide. ACT is the structure I'm about to walk you through. ACT starts with awareness, knowing what AI is. Then capability clicks in. And honestly, most organizations stop here. Capability is, I know how to use the tool. So now I'm aware. and I know how to use the tool. Most organizations stop here because learning the tool is usually the goal. They know how to use it, they know when to take it out, and they know what it's used for. But ladies and gentlemen, transformation only happens at the top in T, thinking, transfer, knowing how to partner with AI to solve real problems. That's the gap. How effectively was that training implemented? How was it coached? How was it reinforced? Thinking is where transformation happens. So that top step is your gap. You cannot coach what hasn't been built. And skipping thinking is what triggers TNT. If the thinking doesn't change, the behavior can't change. Are you following me? You picking up what I'm putting down here? AI can process data. So let's have a wake up call. If it's to process data, it can generate options, but it can't judge relevance, context, or consequence. That's a human skill, and most training never builds it. AI doesn't fail at execution. It fails at the scale of thinking. The skill of thinking is rarely taught, it's actually coached. Because AI doesn't have that human cognitive skill, the judgment, the sense making, prioritization under pressure, contextual decision making, and ethical framing. That's why when AI enters a TNT, taught but not transformed environment, it doesn't close the performance gap. It exposes it, which is what we can take advantage of. It's exposing when human lack of skill and that thinking that goes with it. You can now see that. You won't get transformational results by adding more tools on top of an old way of thinking. It's getting how people think to decide and apply judgment under that pressure is where metacognition thinking kicks in. Let's talk about that for a little bit. So I'll briefly go over metacognition. So the real gap isn't always tools, as I said earlier. It's how people think, decide, and apply judgment under pressure. Metacognition is thinking about thinking, not better prompts, not better lists. It's clearer thinking that shapes the tool that are being used. Most people prompt AI for output, and that's fair. It's like a genie in a bottle to us sometimes. But metacognitive thinkers, they prompt for process. And that's what we're looking for, like a colleague at a seat at the table. This is what you hear my peers talking about when we facilitate to you. You land at the base of training fails because of the way decisions get made. They never change. And that's what we're here to change. So if thinking is the lever and metacognition is the skill, the question becomes, how do we structure thinking about AI? This means that we have to move from prompt changing to problem solving. Think of training as the input, transformation as the output. If you can't see thinking, you cannot coach to the output. This is what we specialize in Blaque RAM, meeting our learners where they are with a focused bottom line look at what we're trying to transform and figuring out what skills are there that we can work with, where the training is and where the coaching takes over. The coaching model for thinking with AI, we like to call the framework of flow. Flow stands for frame, layout, outline, and wrap. Flow gives structure to how humans think, and that is so AI can follow. Flow is our coaching structure. It's for metacognition. It's a thought partner approach to working with AI. With flow, humans lead and AI follows. AI can't anticipate your destination. You must clearly lay out the journey. So let's go through flow lists a little bit. I want to stress that flow isn't a prompt. It's a conversation. It's back and forth, grounded in metacognitive thinking. It blends thinking and prompting. It's adaptive and it's absolutely coachable. You'll see that F is frame the role, and those are the instructions. Why? Because it establishes the voice and the perspective of what AI should have. And then you're going to lay out the task. And that defines the GPS destination and the purpose for the trip. Remember, it needs someplace to go. O and W are what separate interesting from implementable. Without them, you get answers that sound smart, but still cost you time. With the O and the W, you get something that you can use immediately, that outlines specific, and you wrap in the output. With them, you can use this immediately. An email draft, a plan, a checklist for timing, a decision tree. ACT lives in the O and the W. Awareness is recognizing what's missing. Context is the O, putting the missing specifics into the prompt. Transfer of ACT, the T, that's the W, wrapping the output into a reusable format that you or your team can repeat. How we turn AI from chat into work, we outline the specifics so it doesn't wander, wrap the output so it's usable immediately. And I want to show you the difference. So now I'm going to do you a quick demo and I'm going to use the same tool, same scenario, but a different thinking structure. And you'll see dramatically different results. All right. So my scenario is a business owner. They have an underperforming employee. They've kept them for 6 to 8 months and they feel stuck between being nice and being effective. This judgment, the skill of framing, and the skill of decision making. So on the left side, I have the TNT. This is going to show lack of skill, no metacognition, and the prompt says, I have an employee who isn't meeting expectations. What should I do as their manager and provide a step-by-step approach? I'm going to hit play here. And this is a TNT example that's going to pop up right now. So this is an example of somebody who is prompting for answers and not thinking. So it goes through steps. Step 2 is check yourself for the root cause and don't manage harder. Check them quickly. And then it goes into diagnose the cause with a simple lens and how to do that. Fill the gap. Then go through written performance. Set the written performance plan. And then send them an email doc. Make the expectations measurable. In essence, when you're prompting for answers without thinking, it's giving a reasonable answer, right? But it's generic. It doesn't like the steps. There's no context questions here. There's either too few or not enough. There's no judgment, no decision support. So the trade-offs come in. There's no clarity. And you have to go back and forth probably because there's no framing, no reflection, and it doesn't even have ownership here. But understand, AI isn't failing. The thinking around the prompt does. Nothing about this tool has changed. It's just the skill of thinking. I'm going to pause this so you don't get distracted. I'm going to go to my second example. Now, on the right side, this is using act and flow. And I'm going to here frame the outcome. I'm going to list what I need to know with options, trade-offs, and the work plan. So again, the situations I have an employee who isn't meeting expectations. The outcome that I want is to improve performance in 30 days or exit fairly. The constraints are maintain morale, follow HR best practices, and first ask me the 7 most important clarifying questions, only questions, and then wait. So if you understand, this is going to spark a conversation. So if you'll see in this prompt, there we go. I tell it, you are my AI enablement thinking partner. We will use ACT, awareness, surface what's missing, and then we will use flow as a structure for the work. Frame the outcome, list what you need to know, and then options with trade-offs. And then I give it the scenario, the outcome, and the constraints. I just wanted to pause that to make sure you can see it. Here are the 7 questions. Now I am initiating a conversation, right? So with that said, doing the framing of the outcome, what we understand here is ACT is the change in the human. Flow is just a structure that makes it observable. So a quick note for the consultants that might be looking at this and saying, this is prompt engineering. The prompt is just the receipt. ACT is the real lever, the awareness, the context, and the transfer thinking, which is a coaching model for how humans think with AI. Flow is just a scaffolding. that makes the thinking visible. The frame the outcome and list what you need to know, weigh the option, and then work a plan. Same tool, different thinking, and the output changes immediately. Flow is how I make that thinking visible so the teams can repeat the behavior. That's enablement. That's adoption that sticks with the thinking improved, not necessarily the prompt. And for those that are kind of waiting for those 7 questions, I want to make sure that you get to see them. And I'll go to my next slide. All right. So watch what happens next. I answer the questions. Here are the answers. And now we get options, trade-offs, and a 30-day plan. This is the part people miss. You can't prompt your way into clarity if you don't know what to ask. ACT builds the awareness and the context. Flow makes it repeatable. That's why this isn't prompt engineering. It's contextual decision making that transfers into a workflow. So if you see, if I put my information in here, answering the questions, now I have a frame. What success must look like in 30 days. It lists what we must know and lock down. It has awareness of what we're missing, the knowledge, the coaching, even good attitude, and what they're missing. You'll see that it breaks us down and execution and discipline under live pressure. It gives me options, an option A and B on my 30-day performance. It has a transfer of a 30-day performance sprint, and that's what we specialize in. I know what gets measured. I know what support looks like. I know what the week 2 diagnosis is. The reason that this gives it different is because now we have a thinking process to follow. Now we know how to coach to skills that is repeatable behavior. So here's a receipt. Here's how you know that transformation actually happens right here. And this is what it looks like when transformation is clear. Thinking becomes visible, which means it's coachable. Adoption sticks because it's tied to real world training. It didn't relapse. What this happens when human leads and AI follows. ACT builds the capability and flow shapes the thinking, and TNT stops being a trap. TNT is a diagnosis. ACT is how we build capability, and flow is how we apply the thinking in real moments. When thinking becomes visible, it becomes coachable, so adoption things, and people don't relapse under pressure. So you're probably wondering what happened to Jennifer. Well, I went to her supervisor, but then I took a few minutes to speak to her director. Why? Well, you see, Jen didn't need the training. She didn't need the upskilling. Her leadership did. When reading the data, Jennifer didn't look like she was leading her team effectively. And Jennifer didn't feel that she was leading effectively by basing her work on the data. Actually, it was the reporting. The reporting wasn't relevant to what her team's performance was doing, specifically how they were performing according to the data. I worked with their internal LLM system and their AI council for the training, for the data tracking to be changed so it's more targeted to what she was actually doing. This ended up being a lesson for not just Jennifer, but the whole organization, adapting what we're tracking so that the data reflects what we're actually doing. And we did that for the LLM. So if you're thinking about ways to work with me and Blaque RAM, we are an AI enablement sprints. The benefit of having an AI enablement sprint is exactly what you just saw. We determine coaching and training to embed into your workflows, plus some measurable adoption using ACT plus flow embedded into the real workflows. We do group workshops, thinking skills, plus training and coaching, because our conscious coaching approach is transformational. It's not just tool training, although we do that. Our fractional AI enablement lead specialization allows us to have implementation plus adoption systems. My whole goal is to reduce relapse, increase consistent usage of new patterns, new skills, and using the tools that you've learned. Our most common requests are building training ecosystems within an operational 30, 60, and 90-day plan. So now that you know the who, the why, and the what, here's how. You can continue your transformation conversation with me. Scan the QR codes below to unlock Blaque Ram's blueprint, plus some summit freebies. You will get a PDF copy of my book, Taught But Not Transformed, Coaching versus Training. Those links there are how you can reach me on my social media. And if you scan the white QR code, you get the freebies, and the yellow QR code allows you to keep in touch with myself, my husband TJ, and the Blaque Ram office. Thank you for your time. Have a great day.